What if I told you that one of the best first-person games of the last decade wasn't a shooter? That movement and platforming would come center stage, directly into a market oversaturated with the FPS games of the 7th console generation, facing down competition that had already cornered the genre and taking it to new heights was a little passion project by DICE Studios, a studio that intended to diversify their franchise portfolio and refine the craft of game design to a mirror's edge. Swedish company DICE was known for one thing going into the mid-2000s, a powerhouse of an FPS, known as Battlefield. Wanting to create something fresh and interesting, the team responsible for Mirror's Edge imagined a world where the protagonist's skills and physicality were the weapons, a far cry from the guns that made up the bulk of gameplay from their previous series. The studio was still in the early stages of development on their proprietary Frostbite game engine though, and would need another foundation for the game that was to be. Unreal Engine 3 suited the needs of a first-person action game, and so the decision was made to move their prototype from the Battlefield 2 engine into UE3. The design team wanted to create a world that reflected both architectural styles of the East and West Coast, citing an attempt to make the unnamed city feel as if it could be the player's own, that the boring dystopia that surrounds the characters might come from anywhere. It could be anyone's future. Due to the Beast lighting engine, the sterility of a bright white environment and the clashing colors therein have a unique tone that no other game has been able to match in art style. Mirror's Edge released on November 11th, 2008 in North America to generally favorable reviews, which highlighted the art style as well as the fluidity of gameplay. That gameplay is what I would like to talk about here today.
My dick need no introduction, yo dick, don't even fuck.
Everything in Mirror's Edge has one goal: to help deliver the feeling and level of intensity that each section requires. The bold use of color in the art style was a conscious choice, which sets the player up for the pace of the area that you're currently in. Most of the locations that are hostile to the player are colored orange and red, with green generally showing up once the player has reached a checkpoint, or a safe location from the blues, the nickname runners have for the police of the city. Green was intentionally shied away from in development, making it more rare for the player to encounter. This developed a Pavlovian response to the sight of it, and the feeling of safety that it encourages. Alternatively, yellow is used to increase tension and anxiety in the player, a response that is directly reflected in the way it makes us feel in real life. In places where a chase is about to begin, there will usually be a strong yellow color, keying the subconscious to prep for fight or flight. The overall effect of the use of color is to manipulate the player's feelings and decide what their reaction will be. Higher energy sequences need to emulate urgency and force the player to make their choices quickly, instinctively. Knowing that the visual design is working to guide the players into a situation where their familiarity with the world, as well as their muscle memory, act in unison to generate a flow state. This is represented to the new player as runner vision, but over time becomes unnecessary as the player eventually learns to distinguish what objects will do when Faith interacts with them. This is further reinforced by the excellent level design that Mirror's Edge has, with minor exceptions. The levels in Mirror's Edge are no doubt linear, but give the player multiple options regarding how to proceed. Some apparent options are completely non-workable, and usually only discovered as such after the game locks you into it. For instance, being unable to backtrack due to a riot cop blocking your path. Others can work, but are cluttered with excess movement as well as disrupting Faith's top speed. Then there is the quickest path, usually the most technically challenging, and always requiring careful observation. You see, Mirror's Edge has a goal in mind. It wants you, the player, to continue through its corridors and rooftops as quickly as possible. It wants you to be comfortable making life or death decisions on a level so intuitive that it nearly resembles the precognition of Spider-Man. The game both encourages and rewards the flow state by throwing obstacles with multiple solutions in the player's path, and requiring of them that they commit fully to their decision immediately. Ladders are for Only the most observant and the quickest of reflexes can achieve the fastest times, not on the skill of movement alone, although that definitely helps, but also because they're able to make difficult choices under constant environmental pressure, and roll into the consequences, no pun intended, of those choices with a constantly evolving plan of action.
He keeps kicking me in the dick.
While the game itself is good, there are some unfortunate missteps made. The trope of police chasing you is overused, and does not seem threatening after the first few times, operating as more of a minimum time requirement than an actual threat you must engage with while running. The idea is natural to a game where you are some kind of outlaw, but even a good idea can become stale by the umpteenth version of it. By the time the Icarus runners show up, you already know the drill. If you make enough correct decisions, you can keep in front of them, and rarely need to actually engage. They also built up Project Icarus as a huge threat, but never really went anywhere with it in the main plot. Mirror's Edge has a fantastic concept not often enough explored. Can't even work in sanitation no more. First they bust the unions, now they send in snipers. Dad's generation never would have stood for this. Having police in the environment that operate as part of the puzzle or route instead of a timer carrying a Glock 19. The snipers in the second level jackknife are a good example of this. Once in the sewers, you can choose to disarm the closest one and dispatch his friends with the rifle, or simply knock him unconscious and continue on immediately. Regardless of which path you take, the player is forced either to dance around their targeting lasers or to take them head on before continuing. This ensures that the pressure of the situation is more consistent without it just being a fail condition of not getting through the area quick enough. Of course, the player deciding to shoot the snipers somewhat ruins their usefulness in the puzzle, but most experienced players are going for the fastest time and don't bother with them anyway. Keep in mind that this was another of the games coming out during the growth spike of Call of Duty, where everything that could have a first-person shooter segment was going to get it. Thankfully, the sequel rectified this by changing the combat loop to exclusively hand-to-hand. In addition, they also managed to improve the previously mentioned issue by going open world and having melee and ranged combatants placed in the environment as obstacles more than previously had been. Aside from a few notable issues, Faith Connor's story is fast-paced and exciting, delivering on the promise of a first-person free-running experience that keeps the stakes high and the heart rate higher. From the music to the colors and design, everything about it screams for the player to react on a level beyond thought. A layer of existence where the time between informational input and decision-making is near instantaneous, and the title of King goes to those that do not fear how close they can get to the edge. Thanks for watching my video. I put a lot of effort into it, and if you made it to the end, please drop an F in the chat for all the people that were definitely put to sleep by my monotonous script reading voice. And if you enjoyed my content, please like and subscribe. If you don't enjoy my content, but you know someone who you think might, please share it, and find me on all major social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch at Rocket Moose. Thanks.